from the MCPLive.tv studios, located in downtown Conroe. It's the Conroe Art League, live.
Hello, and welcome to Cal Live, the show that tells you everything you need to know about the Conroe Art League, its talented artists, and the wonderful people who make the gallery and the Conroe Art League such an incredible part of our Conroe community. My name is Susan Gramagis, and I'm delighted to be your host today. And I'm also thrilled to have with me my guest. Her name is Patty Gary. Patty is an RN and a certified wound care nurse, and is currently the Vice President of Clinical Affairs for TRX Biosurgery, an innovative medical technology company. Well, that's amazing in itself and very impressive, but she's really here today to talk to us about her passion and love for photography. She is an amazing and creative photographer, and her beautiful images are captured on her site, and we will all have a treat and be able to see them in just a few minutes. A little bit about Patty. She was born in Milton, Florida, but at a very early age, her family moved to Louisiana, close to New Orleans. And she graduated from LSU School of Nursing and worked as a registered nurse in ICU for many years. But while Patty was in high school, she got that photographer bug and actually became the school's photographer. Kind of quickly transitioned from her little Instamatic to a fancy Canon AE1, and she has been taking pictures ever since. She is married to Kurt Gary, has been married to him for 7 years. She has 2 children from a previous marriage and 3 stepsons. She calls her bonus boys. She moved from Louisiana to the Woodlands in 1990, where she's lived for 20 years, but being a country girl at heart, she now lives in Montgomery, and we are so lucky to have her as my guest today. So, Patty, welcome to the show. I'm so thrilled you're here and can't wait to get into our interview.
Thank you, Susan. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Well, we will get started. Let's just say you stated that for as long as you can remember, you've loved photography and that you're basically self-taught. Is that correct?
That is. I always had, a Kodak Instamatic. My mom and dad have one of the old Brownies, but I never really used that or knew how to use it. But, so I guess I badgered my mom enough that she got me a little Kodak. And then away I went, taking pictures of everything.
Wow. So there you go. And so at what point did you decide you wanted to go professional? And why?
I consider myself a semi-professional, I guess because it's not my full-time employment. But I've always had a desire to take my skills higher and higher. And that's one of the great things about photography for me, is that there's always something for me to get better at, do better, and broaden my skill set. And consequently then the depth and breadth of my photography has expanded.
So did you start with taking a certain type of picture in mind, people or nature or everything, architecture? How did it evolve?
I'm a little bit quirky myself, and I think that comes through in some of my images. My kids would find me, outside, up against a tree, taking pictures of the tree bark, or on my hands and knees in the garden, getting a snail or a frog. So I do love nature, but then I, of course, loved capturing them and had lots of opportunities to take people shots of them. I really didn't broaden to other people until later in life, once my kids were grown.
And you're a special dog, I think. You also take pictures.
Oh, my God, yes. And we have 3 dogs. And,
3.
Yes, I do take the dog photos.
I know.
Yes.
They're very much a part of the...
And the neighbor's cat and, anything else that wanders into the yard. Yeah.
So do you have preference to color over black and white?
Color. I love color. And I think I just love color, and that's why. I mean, there's certainly photographers who they anchor themselves in black and white, and they do a tremendous job. It's just not my thing. I like color, and I've noticed. I mean, I guess like anything, there are trends that come and go, and it seems like over the last few years there's been the trend of having a lot of washed out photos, and I still prefer the color. I just like the brighter colors. And it's been a challenge depending on what the color is, and I like that as well. Trying
Do
to
you
master that.
experiment with different techniques in terms or different processes in playing with the color, or do you prefer just the natural?
A little bit of both,
Okay.
and it depends on the subject as well as the setting. Be it if I'm indoors or I'm outdoors, if it's in the sun or it's the shade, as to what I'm then going to do with my camera settings.
Right.
I shoot in manual for the
Okay.
most part.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a period of time where I shot aperture priority, and then the camera would do its thing as far as managing the shutter speed and ISO, although I could bump that up or down.
Right, right.
But now I do shoot in manual and can adjust that. I have a much broader understanding of how aperture and ISO and shutter speed impact what's going on light-wise with whatever it is I'm taking a photo of.
Yeah. Well, so how did you educate yourself with all of this? I mean, is it a continual education? How do you?
It's continual. It really is
Yeah.
continual. I mean, when I was younger, pre-internet, I would go to the library and check out books on photography.
Yeah.
I would buy magazines or subscribe to different photography journals. Now there's so much that's online and YouTube videos. And, as I started to learn more about Photoshop, I cringed just a little bit because I went through a period of time where I overdid it, with Photoshop.
Yeah.
And now I would say I've evolved to, I want to get it right in camera, and there's certainly a place for Photoshop. In my genre anyway, of what I'm shooting.
Yeah.
And I can enhance if necessary, but not. I don't like to digitally alter it too much.
Okay. Do you have a favorite subject to photograph now? I know we talked about but I guess I'm thinking about the birds, and I guess is that, and we'll see that in a minute. But it's really everything, isn't it?
Well, I would say if I had to choose one thing that's my favorite, it would be flowers. Flowers,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
But I'm trying to set my work apart, though, because there are so many fabulous photographers that shoot flowers. But how can I be different instead of just another person who took a pretty shot of a flower?
Well, you are different, and we'll see in a minute. You
thank
do
you.
some beautifully creative things. You said that I was going to ask you who your biggest influencer. You mentioned Brian Peterson.
Brian Peterson.
He's quite I know his books. I mean, I've seen several of his, and he's quite an amazing photographer, and also somebody that you can learn a lot from.
Oh my goodness. He really is, and he shoots color. I mean, he is all about color. So I think perhaps that's what drew me to him initially. And I have all of his books, and his books, he might have one just on exposure or shutter speed or flash. And so early on, I'm going to the 90s, I would say, I would, focus on one book, one chapter, and then take my camera out. Today I'm going to shoot, aperture, 2.8. I'm going to shoot wide open, or I'm going to practice my flash, or I'm going to practice this. And I would just, find subjects, and I would just practice. And, it's over the last year with the pandemic and not traveling as much as, I didn't travel at all. I haven't traveled for over a year now for work. And I was on the road quite a lot.
None of us, I guess.
Yeah. So Brian Peterson does workshops year round where he travels. Well, he, couldn't travel over the last year as much. And he did an on assignment class. Well, I should back up and say that I found him on Instagram, and so I was able to follow him and then see what he was doing. And and like type a message like about a photo he did, and he would comment back, and I was like,
wow.
oh my gosh, this is the fella that I consider him my mentor,
Yes,
and we've never met, but now we have met.
Have you?
Although online.
Yeah.
Because now I've taken 2 of his workshops that, and it's been the greatest thing ever. I'm in week 12 of the 2nd workshop, and this is the final week, and it's called On Assignment. Because, he was thinking back in the day, in the 70s and 80s, when photographers would get an assignment from a company that needed a certain type of photo.
A shoot someplace,
yes.
yeah.
And so he gives us an assignment each week, and then we shoot and submit, 5 images, and then he critiques them. So it's a wonderful opportunity to get him critiquing, my work.
Absolutely.
And it's just been amazing.
Oh, what a great opportunity. And he's such a talent and as you say, great mentor. How wonderful.
Such a wonderful educator, and so
it sounds like
open to
a nice
sharing.
man, yes,
Yes.
to be able to share. Oh, that's great. Well, tell me about processing and editing and all. I mean, does it take a lot of time? Is that the more tedious part of, shooting the pictures after having to go back? Did you have to do a lot of editing?
I try not to spend a lot of time. If I'm spending a lot of time, it means, okay, I need to go work on something because I'm trying to get it right in camera. But I will, crop to a certain size, and then I may enhance or remove something. For example, if I'm sitting in my backyard and I'm shooting the birds at the teacups, and I love shooting across my yard into my neighbor's backyard because he's got these beautiful trees. Well, he's got, like a little, I don't know, he must have been having some work or something done in his backyard. He's got a little flag on the ground. So I have to get rid of that flag in Photoshop.
Right.
So but that doesn't take much time at all.
Okay.
So when I'm using Photoshop, I may be bumping a certain color or getting rid of what I call clutter that I don't want to be in the photo.
And is then everything digital? Do you have to? Do you also process? What if someone wants the actual photograph or a client that you're working for? So do you do that, or do you? How does that?
I do everything digitally, and then my website is hosted through SmugMug, which is a very common photography website, hoster that a lot of photographers will use. And then you can choose different printers if you want everything to go through a particular printer, and so it's seamless. And I really like a printer that's in California, and so everything I run through there. I like this metallic matte paper. Sometimes I'll do metal or canvas, but usually I use that metallic matte paper.
Okay.
It works very nice with color.
Patty, do you, from all your works, do you have one that's a particular favorite, or that you can't possibly part with because it's yours? How do you?
I would say I have several. There's one particular. I have an affinity for homeless people, and I love taking their photo, but getting their permission. So not using my my long lens and taking the picture from them far away, but they've got a story to tell.
Oh, absolutely.
And so there's this one particular homeless man that I took his photo in Portugal a couple of years back. And he just had his eyes. I named that photo Windows to the Soul.
Oh.
Because he was all bloodied and beat up and mud, and his shirt was inside out on backwards, but yet his eyes. And he was just the kindest
see
man.
right into his soul through his eyes. Oh.
And it was so I that is one of my favorite photos, and it actually was in one of the invitationals, and a member of the Conroe Art League actually purchased it.
Really?
And I was so excited to learn that they saw what I saw,
Absolutely, absolutely. So your pictures, in a way, you're trying to tell a story through your pictures in each one. And I think that comes through when you see them, because there's something, it speaks to you and something that you have, wanted to capture. When you travel, do you take all your gear with you?
It depends on the reason for, if it's a trip where I'm going, it's not work related, then, and I know that the person I'm traveling with, if I'm not alone, is
Yeah.
going to put up with me with my equipment, then I'll take it. If it's just me solo, I actually don't like taking a lot of equipment with me because I find it to be very conspicuous. And if I'm walking the streets by myself, I don't
Yes,
want
yes, yes.
my big long lens
Yes,
hanging off to my
yes,
side and a
exactly.
tripod and all of that.
Yeah.
So it depends. Now I'm, having grown up in New Orleans, if I'm going back home to New Orleans, though, I don't know, I have a comfort there, so I will, take
your
lots of
things
different
with you.
equipment and be out in the morning or,
Yeah,
at
yeah.
night or, it just depends.
So if
Was, oh my goodness, billions of dollars. I want to say 14 billion. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, to reinforce the levees, build up the levees to protect New Orleans if there was ever another catastrophic
yes.
hurricane. And so the little town that I grew up in, on the east bank of the Mississippi River, Braithwaite, the 32 feet high cement wall, the new federally funded wall, stopped at Braithwaite. And it started, there were levees that started again 18 miles down the road. So when Hurricane Isaac came through, there was 12 to 18 feet of water. The house I grew up in was covered. And so my parents have passed away long ago, but I still have friends and family, some family that lived, in the area, but not down in Braithwaite.
yeah.
And so I went down to assist with the cleanup. My best friend's parents, we've been best friends since we were, 4 or 5 years old. So of course they're like my parents. Their house that had never flooded, it didn't flood for Katrina, now had 12 feet of water in it. So when they finally let us back in, I went down, and as I'm driving down that river road, I literally was having to drive around houses, horses, there were caskets. It was unbelievable to see that destruction and this marsh, mud, and grass everywhere. And in their house. And so as I was taking all of these photos, and I was helping, my best friend's family to catalog everything that they needed to do for FEMA, I ended up submitting just a very short story. So my colleague I worked with said, "Oh, you should submit that to CNN iReport." I didn't even know what that was, and so I submitted like 5 photos. Casket on the levee, dead horse, their house with this water,
Right.
And a producer called me and said, "Okay, who are you? What are you doing down there? What are these photos of? How do you know these people?" And so I, told her, and she goes, "Okay, so this is how, iReport works. Do this, do that, rewrite it, submit more photos." And I ended up doing like 5 segments of it. It was
Like a journal of the events that happened that go with the picture,
yes,
right?
and it was like what happened then, what was happening then months later, the cleanup, the Corps of Engineers. And I was telling the story really through my best friend's parents, which were like my parents. And one of the pictures I took was of Ms. Loma standing next to this 32 feet high wall. When that door closed, that's it, you're stuck. Fortunately, they had evacuated prior.
Thank God, yeah.
And so at that time, and I don't know if CNN is still doing it, but annually they would give out awards, photojournalism awards. And so out of a field of 11,000 iReports, I was one of 6 finalists.
Oh,
and
congratulations.
It was really
so
cool.
rewarding.
It
yes, and so meaningful to you.
It really was meaningful.
Yeah.
It just
Has
to tell
that
that story.
spurred you to maybe continue doing anything in that area, or
I would love to,
Yeah.
if I just don't have the time.
Yeah,
But I really,
yeah.
it definitely was a lot of fun, and it was extremely rewarding.
Oh, I can imagine. Wow, what a wonderful experience, and part of who you are. Does your profession, as an RN and ICU nurse, have any impact on your photography, or are they complete? Has that been any part of how you evolved into photography, or they're totally separate?
I would say they're separate, except that I think that most nurses are very compassionate, and I try to bring that into some of the photos that I take, in particular, like like the homeless gentleman
Yes,
in
yes,
Portugal.
yes,
So.
absolutely. Oh, Patty, what would you say is the most rewarding part about being involved in photography for you?
When someone comments or share their emotion around a photo that I've taken, that it's extremely rewarding to know that I've created some emotion, be it joy or it could be sadness, another emotion as well.
Yeah.
But that they felt something when they were looking at my photos.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I would like to invite everyone to visit Patty's Instagram site. It is solely devoted to her photography, and you would be mesmerized by the beauty and the creativity of what she does. It's just, I could have spent hours looking at all those photographs. They're
Well,
amazing.
thank you.
So please go. It's called Patty Gary Photography on Instagram. You can find it easily. And now I'd like to be able to show some of the wonderful images that you do. So I think we have 3. Let's start with this one. Tell us about this one.
So this is actually my daughter, Shelley, when she was expecting her first child, who's now 5. And I took this in Dobbin, and it was, she was obviously very close there.
Yeah.
And it was in the afternoon and the sun was setting, and I'd already taken a lot of photos, and I was like, oh, Shell, come stand over here. Let's get this with the sun setting in your back. And I mean, she's put up with me taking lots of photos of her through her life. So, but it was just at that moment, I don't know, magic happens, right? I looked through my lens and she just had this look on her face and her eyes were closed and, her hands were on her belly, and it was like she was thinking, and she was at peace and thinking about what was to come.
Yes.
And that ended up being my favorite shot of the day, and it wasn't one that I planned, except for, hey, go stand in the grass, let's get the sun setting behind you.
Yeah. Oh,
So.
I'm sure that probably is a very special thing for her too.
Yeah.
All right, and then we have, what's the next one? Oh, your flowers.
So this is, I've been trying to do, like I said, some different things with my flower photography. And this is one of 5 tulip photos where there are a couple. I call it when tulips tango. And there was some manipulation, as you could see there with the leaves, where it looks like they're grasping one another.
Yes.
And that's what I was trying to do with that.
You gave them personality. I was thinking 2 lovers. Yeah. All right, and then we have, I think, our last one, and this is, oh my gosh, this one is just, I can't even begin to think of how you were able to do this.
So, well, obviously the week of the frozen tundra, right? And this was, I believe, on day 2 of the snow, and in my backyard. And I had been shooting birds in this manner, and I really do derive great joy in sitting out there watching the birds. And then I said, I need to take some photos of these birds. I mean, it's really meditative for me. And I set up my tripod, and I sit there and I watch them. And for that particular one, I was feeding them as well, because of course all the feeders were covered in snow, and there were lots of birds, and there was sparrows in that photo, pine siskins, and a purple finch. And at first the purple finch landed, he's on the top there, and then the other birds came in, and then these sparrows came in, and that finch was just staring at me like, okay, who's crashing my tea party? And it was just, I give them personalities, but it just looked like that's what he was, telling me. And then, there's another one flying in there. So
it's just incredible. It's just amazing that you were able to capture that, that they all, it's like, they were all coming to have a tea party.
Yes. So that was on the Tuesday. On Thursday, the tea party changed to, I set up like a bottle of gin and some highball glasses.
I would have liked to see that one.
A silver ice pitcher, and at that point they were fighting and the food is flying, and I got some good ones of that
too. A little different
things where it was
it's
kind of how I was feeling on day 4 of no water. So
that's great. Oh, well, they are just amazing.
Well, thank you.
how did you come to the Conroe Art League? I wanted to kind of wrap all that together and see how you.
I'm so delighted that I found the Conroe Art League. So when Kirk and I got married in 2014, we had the great fortune of having a neighbor named Pat, and Pat has now moved to Rockport. And she did beautiful beadwork and made jewelry, and she would tell me, you need to come to the Conroe, because she'd see me out there, with my camera crawling around in the front yard, taking a picture of whatever. And she says, you need to come to the Conroe Art League with me. You need to. And so I finally went with her, and I just fell in love. And I one of the things I really wish is that I would like to devote more time and volunteer. I really don't spend as much time in the art league
working
as I
still.
work. And then
it's
I've got,
hard.
my 2 grandsons, and there's other activities, but I would love to be able to spend more time, though.
Oh,
because
and
I do enjoy it. And
what
the
would
people
be
are
great?
lovely.
Yes, there's such great people, and a photo workshop that you could do would be so exciting.
You know what, that would be
Maybe
fun,
one day
actually.
we'll have to talk to somebody that is in the know and see if they can get us set up to do a photo workshop, because you are just so amazingly talented, and
thank
they are
you.
so lucky to have you a part of the league.
Oh, I think I'm the lucky one.
Oh, well, Patty, thank you so much for being my guest today. And we are very fortunate in the Conroe Art League to have people like you that represent the type of talent that is there, which is incredible, really amazing.
Oh, well, thank you.
And
The
as
honor's mine, though, too.
well, we are all together as we create, appreciate, and learn. And please go visit the gallery. Please go visit, see the amazing works that are there, and see how excited I am when I talk to our artists and know how wonderful and lucky we are. So thank you for joining us, and hope to see you on our next show. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.